Yes, welcome. This is F Rap Critic. I'm your boy Malik 16, and no, fish is not my favorite dish, but I'm here with legendary New York royalty, fashion royalty, hip hop royalty. And if y'all couldn't already tell from the hats, if y'all don't know who I'm talking about, I'm gonna let her introduce herself, the queen. Who you be?
My name is April Walker, and I am the first woman with the streetwear brand, the founder and the creator of Walkerwear, one of the first urban fashion and streetwear brands. And you know, we're still in conversations and still swinging with aim to the day globally with a much different model. We sell online, digital e-commerce, and pop-ups around the world. And I personally am a maker, a creator, a diehard Brooklynite, and I am an educator, an author, and just really love to see my community win. That's who I am.
Word. The legendary April Walker, who just multi
Yeah, we,
hyphenate, who
that's
there
Walkerwear.
you
That's
go.
Walkerwear. We both rock and Walkerwear. Thank you. I appreciate you.
Oh man, it's always from a legit place. We love, 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 showing love. And I was really happy to see how big your online presence is because you're tapped in. You know, a lot of people didn't know how to make that shift, and on the pulse of it. So, um, this show, I challenged you when I reached out. I was like, you do hella interviews, right? And all your
Right.
interviews are kind of, going into similar territory. I'm like, you are hip hop. You've done so many things this year for the 50th anniversary of hip hop, and we're not even halfway through the year. So I was like,
Right.
since you are hip hop, I wanted to tap more into that side and just test your hip hop knowledge and let the people hear from someone who's been through most of these important hallmark moments in hip hop who could speak to it from a lived presence. So I was like, okay, we can have a little fun with it. So, because you are a special guest, though, and I have to tell you, April, you gave me such a challenge. When I went from telling you what album to just letting you choose, because I'm like, this is the queen right here. You chose one of the greatest albums of all time, none other than Rakim, Eric B. and Rakim's Paid in Full. And that's what we're going over today. This is category one, where we go over the album, the product itself. A little background on this album: it was released on 777, the God Hour. That's if you follow. Most of us believe that was not by design. We know how big the number seven is to Rakim. He'll tell you I was born with three sevens in my head. Look it up. But yeah, July 7th, 1987. So we are 1 year over commemorating the 35th anniversary of this album's existence. This is year 36, but it was April's choice. Fourth and Broadway and Takia Records under Rush Management, which is Russell Simmons' management label before he formed Def Jam. It's just a hell of a time, man. So, because I'm gonna switch it up a little. Have you ever seen Hot Ones? You ever see that game show?
No.
Okay, so it's a show basically where they have all these celebrities on and they have them eating chicken wings, or if you're vegan, it's like vegan chicken, but with different hot sauces. And the dude, Sean, he'll straight up interview you as you're eating these crazy hot things and like fanning yourself and drinking milk and water, and but he's still keeping a straight face and asking you all these interview questions. So I'm gonna switch things up because what we usually do, have my guests on here, we'll review the album in all the dimensions. So basically, I created a ranking system to determine how great the greatest albums are, how classic the hip hop classic albums are. So
Okay.
with this system, we go through like all these different points, and you rank them on a scale from 1 to 5, five being the highest. And we
Okay.
talk about it a little before we rank it. But what I'm gonna do with you, I'm gonna ask you a question about the album, then I'm gonna ask you a fashion or April related question. We're just gonna go back and forth like that.
Okay.
So we're gonna dip in and out of music and pieces of your journey. All right. So my
All right.
very first question, since it is the 50th anniversary of hip hop, you've been launching this campaign uh, where I'd like to know what it means to you and where this is going. Fashion, the sixth element of hip hop. What does that mean to you?
That means to me that fashion has is part of the DNA of hip hop, and I don't appreciate how it's been left out. And they say the five elements, right? So I mean, how can we not say fashion? It's a part of our self expression, and hip hop is all about self expressing and doing things different. And I think from day one, fashion was a part of that. The fashion and the music were how we expressed ourselves. So I just don't even understand how it never made it into one of the elements officially. So I'm ch- I'm advocating for that change this year. We're gonna add the
Yeah,
sixth element, and it's fashion.
when it gets recognized, you could add this as another notch in your legendary history that your name is gonna have to be associated with pioneer and spearheading that movement, and it is long overdue. I think we can't talk about breakers without talking about the jumpsuits they were wearing, right? The windbreakers that they
Right.
were on cardboard and linoleum with. We can't talk about how dramatically the fashion changed from what Melly Mel and the Furious Five were wearing to what Run
Right.
DMC were wearing, the statement they made, NWA. And so, yeah,
Everybody had different uniforms of the way they express themselves. Just like today, but it's started and we've seen the progression through decades, and you can see how fashion was changing even in hip hop, and now it's genderless, right? But um it's always been such a costume that we wear as part of our DNA. You know what I mean? And
got
how
you.
we feel.
Got you. And we're talking fashion, right? We're just talking about how it's embedded. Like on this channel, y'all often see me. I rock my the shirt I designed. I used to love a shirt, which y'all can cop on the ratruler.com, which you should go visit. And while you're at it, take a moment to like and subscribe to the channel. It's just very hard to have that conversation without it. And I'm actually surprised that this hasn't been brought up before. And so props to you for again being a visionary and leading that charge. But
Thank you.
do we expect to see should we expect
More.
to see more of that kind of titling and branding on?
Absolutely.
There we
I
go.
mean,
So I
I use Walkaware as a voice for our community as well. You know what I mean? Through the backdrop of Walkaware, because that's what it is, right? So, and we were built on community, and it's how I reverse engineered into the fashion industry, just believing in hip hop. So for me, I'm gonna talk about all the things, and some of them might make us uncomfortable, but change never happens from that comfort zone.
got you. Reverse engineer, what a term. Um, you ready for the first Eric B. and Rakim question now?
Let's go.
First dimension, we're gonna talk about the beats. Let's talk about the quality of the beats. I've seen some things online that said we respect Rakim so much that we like overlook the fact that maybe these beats don't hold up to now. But I don't know. What do you think about the beats on here?
I love them. Like, I mean, simplicity works sometimes, and they so funky, and they worked. It's like one band, one sound. You could have the lyricism, but if you don't have the right beat behind it, there's no way um that impact was felt, and that marriage was made, and that um delivery in the outcome of what we feel and felt now and then. There's no way you could do that without everything being the stars lining up. So to say that, I'm gonna say no, I don't agree with that. And B, I'm gonna say that it's all relative, right? Because the tools we have now are so technology has advanced, and for every period, every decade is different. So you can't judge the beats today off of where we were 30 years ago. You know what I mean? So that's crazy to me, because we didn't even have, we were what, like, we were still working on DAT machines and all kinds of other stuff. So it's
Mm-hmm.
crazy. You know what I mean? So they did a phenomenal job, because you could play those beats now and somebody else could rap to it and it could still be dope. So I don't agree with that. You know, I think that if they used everything now, with that, my debate would be it might not sound as good
Yeah,
because
I
it's
think
the perfect mute mix of him being the star and you hearing the lyrics versus putting everything under that and amplifying all the music and then you're not getting that. So
yeah,
that's what I would say.
man, I couldn't put it better. Yeah, I was watching a video of Marley Marl recreate the Eric B is President beat because Eric B gets a lot of credit for producing that, but they really collaborated and it was mostly Marley. And just seeing it, it's like if you watch today's producers, it's the same process. Just like you said,
Same
just simpler
process, just
material,
different tools they had.
and it resonates, and it's the same level of genius because the way he had to incorporate just like the drum roll or the snares and the kicks from Impeach the President and
Of
Funky
course.
President, it's
It's
crazy.
certain sounds with certain decades and certain genres and certain eras that you hear it throughout. Like, and Marley Marl was a whole vibe, like in a sound. And he is one of those like producers that everything he touched turned to gold because he was tapped in and just his genius spoke through the
Yeah,
music.
yeah. And so Marley is the only outside producer on there, and I read Rakim's autobiography, Sweat the Technique, maybe
I did
about
too.
2.5 years ago, and he made it a point to say, people assume because this is the era where if you're DJ, you're in a group, and the DJ is part of the group, they're usually credited as being a producer. Rakim was like, I did most of the
Yeah, I
music
read that.
on that, and I mean, he says it in such a way with like a little oomph behind it. He's not just passively saying. He's like, I did that. He said, I picked the samples, I chopped it up. So when you hear tracks like I Ain't No Joke, Move the Crowd, like that's all Rakim right there. Besides my melody and Eric B as President, where Molly Marl's hand is there. And what happens is you're getting what was kind of the lay of the day. A lot of soul samples, a lot of Parliament, James Brown. Uh, I know You Got Soul is just a straight rip from Bobby Bird, but it's the little things that they do. The way they intro it is going to be from a different soul song than where the main verse is from. And then, of course, with the scratches, you're getting all different kinds of songs. So I think
Right.
if you were to give this production uh, a rating on a scale from 1 to 5 heartbeats, what would you give it?
Just the production of the album.
The beats.
Um, I mean 4 to 5, I would say. And that's just because of what I just already went over. Like, I don't think you could have that magic without it being a balance. And so that's genius in itself to be able to work from um somebody's instrument, their vocals, and sync it with the music when one is not overpowering the other. Really, it's really the lyricism in that was the star, like the delivery, his whole everything, right? But then
Right.
the music had to support that, and a lot of people might not have got that right because they might have wanted to just, you know,
Right.
overpowered it.
No, yeah. I think the simplicity is what let us acknowledge, oh, Rakim is a beast. Like, I ain't no joke. There's really no beat to it. It's just hard ass drums
Right.
and then the
But
horn
the
every now
beat
and
is
then.
hard. It's hard enough where it's like it gives you a whole vibe. So you like feel that hardness. You felt all of that. You like, let's go. So it just, I don't know.
Yeah, I think everything you said, you put it perfectly. Because I mean, you get those open beats. It allowed us to appreciate. Oh, this is a new kind of style. So it sounded like you said between 4 and 5, so maybe like a
I did.
4.5.
Let's do
Four
that.
point five. Okay, cool. We're going to another April question. I want to talk about April the student versus April the teacher. You've been in the halls
Okay.
of a lot of colleges, right? So you are what, SUNY New Paltz alum?
I didn't graduate. I left in my junior year to start Walkaway.
What was that like? Because you were originally a business major.
Communications and business. Yep.
hmm did you enjoy your time as a SUNY student? Shout out to everybody in New York, by the way.
Shout out to SUNY students. Um, Not really. Like, I mean, to be honest, I just was ready to start. Like, I knew I didn't want to work for someone else. So, but I didn't know what it would be, you know? but I felt like college was that next thing to do from high school. So I was going through, and I thought maybe if my fallback would have been like a newscaster or a commentator. So that's where the business and communications was coming in, but it served me in my business, you know. Um, so yeah, no, I was in those streets. So for me, being in the streets was like I actually had my school, my academic programs and my classes scheduled around like Roxy's and Empire roller skating rink and what night was what night. Like that's how serious it was for me. So
Wow.
it was a whole not that was important too, you know?
That's so. Listen, that's like you could teach an unofficial class on how to balance having a social life and being a student. Because I think a lot of kids go and they wild out because they don't know how to create that balance, right?
Yeah,
Um,
this is true.
did you have that like disillusionment moment where you like by your third year in college, you're like, look, they just training me to be a worker. I'm trying to be a boss. Is that what happened?
No, because I was already disillusioned before I went into college. You know, like my upbringing was different. So the way I thought about things were different. I was very rebellious by the time I was in high school. So I think college was more of my fallback plan, but I was figuring out what it would be, you know, and I didn't know what it would be. And it wasn't until like literally hip hop hit me on the head with the entrepreneurship. I think in the 80's, the spirit of entrepreneurship kicked in hard. And so I started seeing these wins, like whether it was Run DMC or um, Crush Groove, or, all the different things that were happening from film to music. As I was seeing fashion evolve, and then seeing Dapper Dan with something in Harlem, I'm like, oh, okay. So, boroughs were very segmented and different. We didn't have Yo MTV Raps or any of these visual mediums we have now. So it was just about my hood, and I wanted to rep hip hop for Brooklyn. So that's
Got
literally how I was like the business hat came on, like, oh, this is something I know I could do because I was already in hustle mode by the time I was in high school.
got you. So how does that compare to April, the professor? Right, you've been in a few halls, right? I think you just wrapped up at Parsons, or is Parsons where you started?
I contributed with Parsons in an online course called Streetwear Essentials, and I teach a high school course, master class with um, Milk D from Audio 2. We teach something called um, Build Your Own Brand, and we do it on the canvas of fashion and music. But it's really about you being the brand, and anything you ideate, you're gonna create twice, once in your mind and then tangible, assets to the world. But we basically just trying to tap into the young people and tell them, like, I think our education system on a whole, it's changing, not fast enough, but it's broken. And I think a lot of people are taught, like you said, to be workers versus to create and to ideate and to manifest what you're supposed to be doing, whatever your life assignment is, you know what I mean? But we get distracted with society's measures. So, just really, especially our kids, like hugging our kids to let us know, like, we could do anything we want if we believe in it. And really,
That's what
that's what that is.
I
And
was going to like.
I was an adjunct at NYU with Clive Davis who taught something called the sound of fashion.
There you go. All right, we jumping back into the album.
Okay.
Dimension Two. Dimension Two. We're talking about the cohesiveness. So this is
Okay.
really just it's a short album, like most of the infamous, just magical music classics. I always throw up Thriller in there. 10 song
Right.
album. Illmatic 10 song album. This is a 10 song album. Depending on what version you get, they might have some radio edits and radio, extended mix, but 10 songs is really only 7 songs because three of them are just, Eric B tracks where he's scratching over his own production. Um, but it's just really 7 joints. How well do you think the album flows together from start to finish?
Really nice. Like for
Yeah.
me, um, first of all, they're pretty much all bangers. So for me, it's just like, the vibe was consistent and the flow, it gave me enough um point of differentiation. It wasn't like this album, right?
Right.
It had enough of this, but all of it was like bam, bam,
Yeah, you such a New
bam.
Yorker. The fact that I understood that, because I'm from Harlem, so I'm like, yeah,
Right.
like we speak with a lot of onomatopoeia. I understood everything you just said. we'll put
It's
we'll put
real.
subtitles for the non-New Yorkers. Uh, what would you give the cohesiveness on a scale from 1 to 5?
On a scale from 1 to 5, I would give it a 4.
A 4. Got you. So we leave a little room because it could have been a little tighter. I've heard
Yeah.
some people complain about the Eric B cuts. They just kind of like filler to a lot of people. They feel like,
Yeah.
because I mean, these are not short joints. These are like 3 minutes of him scratching.
Right.
You got to be in the mood for that, right?
Right.
Uh, but okay, right. And so as the reason I brought them up as parallels, because I'm like, knowing your experience in college, do you make it a point to try to like lead your courses in a way where it speaks to someone that might be like 1 foot in, 1 foot out?
Oh yeah. So I always am of the sort of not swaying either way, because I don't. I feel like everyone has a different journey, and I never would want to try to influence someone else's journey, or play God in that way, you know. But what I will tell them is share gems or jewels I have, and I'll always be real and share my truth when asked. You know what I mean? And I think that's different. But I also tell them my journey might not be your journey. You have to make the best decisions for yourself, and I truly believe that, because everyone is not going to be um, an entrepreneur, and that's fine, or a creator. But just speak your truth and know your truth and live your truth, whatever that is, and know your power. Like, because we're all brands, whether we realize it or not. It's the difference between you working late on a Friday night or taking Fridays off. It's how we negotiate and how the work, knowing our work. So I think that, and no disrespect to anybody working overtime, because I've done that many times too, but then I still do it being my own boss. But it is
Yeah.
what it is.
And you hit it on the nose, because young people, one thing young people love the most is not being talked down to be given choices. And they're smart, they know when they're being BS and finesse, and they love when people speak to them on a level where it's on a level, right? It's like,
Right.
okay, look, the future is yours, but here's your options, here's what it looks like.
Right.
And I'm sure
And
you
at
see
the
that with the
same
high
time, you
school.
could waste it, right? Because
Mhm.
you could do that too. It's choices.
Yeah, I wish I had cool ass fashionable teacher to give me the real, right. And we remember those teachers who do give us glimpses of the real. What high
That's
school was
real.
that,
I
by the
do.
way?
It's called Brooklyn Academy of Global Finance, and it's in Bed-Stuy.
That's amazing, man. Like the opportunities that's such a dope class. Like I think I'm in my mind, I'm doing backflips more that there's a high school course for that than a college course. Like, because we just need that kind of stuff, you
Yeah,
know.
the earlier we can get it, the better, because it changes our perspective about the possibilities. So I've done all the way down to middle school before, so it just depends.
Very dope. And so dimension three, when we talk about the album, the
Hmm.
intentional mood, and tone. So this question is like, what point do you think they were trying to get across with this album?
Shut it down. Shut it down.
Yeah,
I
reviewed on
mean,
this channel.
damn, like drop the mic, literally. Like, what are you? It left so many people with their mouths open, like
Yeah,
literally. Like, if
yeah,
you were trying to deny, you could not deny. Like
yeah.
after that.
That's crazy. The very first album we reviewed on this channel was Follow the Leader, because
Mhm.
my children's book, which comes out in a few months, I it was inspired by a line on the microphone Fiend, right? When he says, "I
Mhm.
grabbed the mic and tried to say yes, y'all,"
Mhm.
and I pointed out how on that album it sounded like he was there to claim his spot. Like, yo, I'm the leader of this. There's no
Right.
competition, right? On this first album, he's a little bit more humble. I feel like this is the
Yeah.
introduction. But in his humility, like you said, there's a
He's
game
still
changing
giving
quality.
it to you.
Right.
I
Even
ain't
from the
no
moment
joke.
he said,
I
I came, right. The
mean,
first song is called I Ain't No Joke. He tells you how he came in
like,
the
stop
door.
playing with me. That's what
Yeah,
that
it's
album is. My melody, I ain't no joke. I know you got soul, move the crowd. Like like you say, it's humility and confidence could live in the same room. And I think that album was that.
yeah. Wow.
He gave you
Drop the
humility and
mic on
confidence.
that. Drop the mic. Yeah, I think there's an incredible amount of humbleness because I think a lot of that comes from, again, if you read Rakim's book, he tells you he wasn't even grasping the concept that he's making the album. The first two songs was just him being amazed to work with Marley Marl. He's like, all right, I met this DJ Eric B. He wants to do a record. Cool. Here's some rhymes. Then when they were like, yo, we got a deal. The story is they finished this album in 1 week. So the other like 4 or 5 songs is just him being in the lab, like, oh, I'm a real rapper now. I do this professionally. Let me take this seriously. And
And
you
I
hear that.
and I think, we're all extensions of our own brands. Period. And I think that I had the privilege of meeting him a few years ago now. Um, we traveled in the same circles, but I don't know if we ever like literally talk, but we did. We both were recognized through the city, and we were honored, and it was really great to meet him. But what I want to say about him is, as you're talking, you're making me think about um, he's modest. He's just a modest guy that is confident with a lot of, like, who he is in his music is who he is in real life. Just less is more, real modest, like straight shooters, no bullshit. This is who I am, and that's that. You know what I mean? And don't want to play games, no nonsense. You know what I mean? And that's what comes across in his music. What you see is what you
Absolutely.
get, and I ain't no joke, for real. Like, that's who he is. But
I've never seen Rakim smile.
he's so humble and so approachable. It's nice to see people like that have that kind of like genius in them, and they're not caught up, and it just is like, this is who I am.
Yeah. And like you said, it all comes across on the album. This is still the era of I want the party people to dance. Like on I Got Soul, he dedicates the whole verse on that song to
Right,
like, yo, I want to see who can dance about it. You don't picture
right,
Rakim caring about dancing. Those are two
right,
things that don't line, but that mattered back then.
right.
It's
And it
yeah,
shows you his breadth of work, like his diversity, the bandwidth. Like, I could give you this, or I could give you that, and I could do them
yeah,
both.
yeah, yeah. All right, so what you giving this on a scale from 1 to 5 heartbeats for the intentional mood? Like how much did they set out to set a mood and accomplish that?
5.
5. Got you. Okay, we're gonna jump back to another April question. I love this. This is fun. Um, I got a question about uh your first store, right? Fashion in Effect. How hard was it to get a storefront back in that era? Because this is like late 80's, you open your first store, right? Brick and mortar. Like just having that, first of all, just having the notion to be an owner of a storefront, but like, was that a hard process?
Oh yeah. I mean, you know what? It was so long ago. I can't remember how many places I looked at, but I do know that God is good. Like, that's all God right there. Because when I look back and think about, his name was Bill Clinton, and he's still alive, but he was the landlord, a black man that took a chance on me and gave me my first lease. And I literally was like 21. I was a junior, maybe going into my senior year, because I came home and I started getting busy in my house first, and then maybe 6 months later I started looking for a space. So yeah, so he said yes. I don't know why. He took that chance. You know why he took the chance? I remember he was dating a woman who was another real estate woman that was doing big business, but I went to high school with her son,
Mm.
and we went to Bishop Loughlin together. So she was like, I know her, and so that, I think that probably sealed the deal.
Yeah, that community, that having someone to vouch for you, that familiarity.
Yeah,
You're of the people. You're of where you're from,
right.
right?
And they both were black. Real talk, so that makes a difference when it's for us, by us.
Mhm.
And so that was, but all of that story, nothing that could have happened without God. That's how I look at that. That was a God moment, because me being 21 in the 80s, like, it wasn't even sexy to be an entrepreneur then, and somebody took a chance on me. So I'm thankful.
So every time I hear you talk about starting your first store, what stands out to me is that you always talk about finding the place as the most difficult part. But I'm like, yo, what about raising the capital to pay up for it up front? And
Right.
I'm like, you didn't have to get no loans. This is all just you grinding, like working hard. Like I got the money.
Yeah. No, it was all grind. It was not easy. Like, I worked at American Express as a customer service. I quit, but I saved up my money, and then I was past the hat, literally family and friends. But um the store was a hole in the wall. It wasn't plush, what you would imagine. It was literally everybody pulling together. I had a homemade sign that I actually painted, and that was my awning for the years that we were there. I mean, we made our couch, like, literally with wood and platform, and went to Canal Street and bought the foam, and we literally sold covers and pillows. And when you came in, there was a couch you could sit on. We went to New York Times, used to have liquidation section on Sundays, so that's how I bought all my machines, through liquidations of auctions of people going out of business with their sewing business or their fashion business, and I would go up and bid, and that's how we figured it out. Like success leaves clues. So I was able to look at the blueprint of Dapper Dan and others that I started, like, studying the game and seeing, oh, they're using these machines. I need this, I need that. And it wasn't overnight. It was like, all right, we're gonna start with one sewing, one Singer Industrial, and get one Marrow machine. Then we'll get one Juki after we get a few more suits sold. And you know how it goes. That's what we did. And then we had one worker, and then we had two. And you just got to be patient. I mean, patient in entrepreneurship. If you're not patient, it's nothing. Don't sign up for, out of everything. Don't go into fashion if you're not patient, because it's
Is
not a
it
it's not a microwavable success formula. It's a lot of cash flow involved. You spend a lot before you get back a return. And there's like a 90-day window with inventory if you're selling to stores. And a lot of it these days, I don't know how brands are doing it, because it's almost consignment. It's like you sell to the department stores or whoever, but whatever doesn't sell, they want you to take it back. We didn't have that, back then. So that's different. And the margins have to be certain places for the retailers. And we were building. So I think one of the advantages of the industry coming up and them seeing the floodgates open was we were able to dictate, this is what we're going to do. This is what we're offering. We're not giving you a discount. You're going to take this much or you're not going to get the brand. And we were on fire. So it really we had a vantage point with that.
got you? Wow. And I'm thinking about, and I should probably split this into a different question. I naturally want to go into my next question, but we'll leave it at that. All right, I'm jumping right back into the album. Dimension 4, the repetition factor. So if we talk classic albums, we expect our classic albums to have every song sound like its own little chamber, and things don't get redundant after a while. So how much repetition is on this album is what we're talking about here. We talked about the beats in good detail. I think you're getting 80s sounds, but because the samples are so different from each other,
Yeah.
not a lot of beats. I don't think any beats on here sound the same. Just from the drums, it might be the same library sound bank of drums, but they're used in different ways. The drums on I Know You Got Soul are not the same drums as the rhyme goes on, or
Right.
I Ain't Joe.
I agree. That's why I said I felt that album was like, and not, on the production. I think they did a good job.
Now lyrically, as lyrical as Rakim is, as much as he's credited with changing the game, he does repeat a couple things throughout the albums. He's gonna say the word detect a lot. He's gonna say microphone fiend. Before we knew he was gonna come out with a song called Microphone Fiend, he says microphone fiend about 5 times on this album.
That's clever
Uh,
marketing.
you think it was intentional?
It could have been. Very much could have been.
I always try to look at things like as a rapper to another rap, like from a rapper's mind to. I'm like some of this could just be. A lot of time rappers write and don't realize they're doing the same thing.
Yeah,
Just
no,
one
definitely
song.
that. But being that he did a whole album, a song after, a lot of times I think as a creative, but I, I'll be honest. A lot of times, I think as the business person first, like, what's the setup? What's the layup? What's coming? I don't do things just for one off. So, what's next? So, if I can promote something, I'm gonna give it to you in 10 different ways.
With
I
his
mean,
name.
maybe it wasn't, but I just maybe it was. He was a businessman.
I think yeah. So I'm split on that. I think with the microphone thing, I think it's just one of those habits. I think
Okay.
sometimes rappers don't catch themselves, but the part that I do think was intentional was how much he says his name. He says his name a million different ways all throughout the
Hmm.
album, right? My name is Rakim Allah. You
Yeah.
can call me the R. Turn switching
Yeah.
around. Either way, it's the R. He says the R, Rakim Allah. He says it a million times throughout the album. That's that intentional branding and marketing. You're not gonna forget that name. First time you're hearing that name in hip hop, and ever since it stands alone. Like,
Yeah.
uh, and so I think because it's a short album, none of that stuff wears it down. Sometimes we hear albums and we're like, man, don't this song sound like track 7, sound like track 2? Not so much here because it's just like you said, it just goes through every song's a banger. So on the repetition factor, if we think about beats and rhymes, scale from 1 to 5, 5 means it wasn't repetitious at all. 1 means it was super repetitious. What you giving that?
Beats and rhymes. You
Mm-hmm.
said. Mm, I'm gonna say then. I mean, you just gave me some stuff that was repetitious, so I'm gonna say probably a 4 because it wasn't. It didn't bother me.
Got you. Yeah, I mean that's the whole point of the scale. We start thinking of things differently than we would have before. All right, now I'm jumping back to the question that I wanted to ask you, which is, so you got this store, you got this brick and mortar, it's set up. You like you say, you did a lot of elbow grease work to get it, up. You got your handmade sign, marketed. How do you get? Is it a lot like? I'm imagining like when new barbers or new cosmetologists are trying to recruit clients, like, yo, check me out. I heard you in interviews say that you would go to the hot spots wearing your own stuff as a form of
Right.
marketing and
Mm-hmm.
advertisement. Is that pretty much how it worked?
So that's one of it. But we had to do so many. I mean, it's just like guerrilla marketing. Like you have to think differently. And again, like I didn't have the fashion industry as my the way I should do business because I didn't go to school for fashion, and so that wasn't my bar. But what I was looking at, because my father came up in the music industry, so I watched him, and then by the time I was in college, um, in working at fashion, and in fact, I started working with music artists. So now I'm dealing with the record companies and I'm watching their blueprint, and it was so different. But I knew it because I was already like hustling since I was a teenager. So I'm like, okay, so we just got to think differently about this, in order to get our stuff out there, because we already had a built-in audience from like the store was like a magnet for hip hop, because at that point we were just looking for all things hip hop, and so authentically it became like a hangout, from graffiti to music to fashion to the hustlers to any and everybody would come and drop by the shop or hang out. And we used to have people tag their names on the wall and all of it. We had murals, all the music was popping, all of it. But word of mouth was the best first, because two friends tell two friends. That was our viral, and that spread fast. Like there's this chick in Brooklyn that's making some dope product. You got to go see her, yada yada. And then I started making clothes for a client that was from Chicago that had a detail shop in LA. So now I'm sending like a lot of detail fabric out there. So now West Coast is starting to get wind of it, right? And then I'm building relationships, because what I did was know that relationships were everything. And so my first I gave my dad Jazz's demo, and that's how he started working with Jazz and Jay-Z. So now Marcy Projects, as I get older, like this is like clusters of tribe members, so they tell two friends and two friends and it just grew. Biggie walked in my shop. That was all. It is a God moments, but it's just like those little moments as we're all building and coming up together. That was my first form of viral. Then when they got their foot in the door, I started going to the A&R cats and the artist development, like, look, you need to have me work with you. I started styling, like, let me go ahead and hook up this artist, Naughty by Nature and Run DMC, Queen Latifah, and Shakim, and all these people. They gave me a chance, so I was able to not only style but now product place, and I became one of the first to product place. And that's how we really infiltrated through product placement, to the point where BET and MTV sent letters like, we will no longer allow your W's in videos without you paying us. That's where that whole
started out.
Yeah. I'm sure I was on a panel with Dap. I always thought it was just me, but he was talking and he said that, and I was like, oh, so they probably sent one to me, Carl, and him,
Yeah.
But that's how it went.
It happened like overnight in hip hop. It was everywhere. It became this, how do we monetize everything?
It was very intentional about building the relationships, and then just really just amplifying that presence. And that's how I think we started. And then we made it hard for the stores to say no, because the kids were asking them all the time, like, do you have Walker Wear? Do you have it? So finally, that's how we got our foot in the door.
Are you, because from listening to the last piece you just said, are you a big proponent of closed mouths don't get fed? You gotta kind of invite yourself and be your best promoter, like, hey, y'all need me.
Yeah, you just have to be proactive about your life and not reactive. If you're waiting for a knock at the door, you need to just have a 9 to 5.
Yeah. That's
you have to create your opportunities and make them, and there's no way to make them without you being the best advocate for yourself and showing the world shows up for you how you show up for you. So you got to show up for you, and you have to be like shaking in your knees, but I'm gonna do this. And after you shaking your knees and you do it, you realize, hey, I'm still alive. I did that. And then you do it again and you do it again. It's like riding a bike till it's just boom, you jump on it and let's go. But if you want to achieve anything great, you have got to learn to live in the discomfort zone.
Yeah. Wow. These are gems here. These are gems. Walker gems, by the way. So like, yeah, I think as detailed and as deep as you just got there, I just have to highlight everything you just said, because we're talking about a time in life where there was no Google. There was no, right now, even this shirt, right? I'm talking about, go cop it. It's not the same amount of hitting the pavement as back in these times where we're talking about, no, word of mouth. You physically have to be the places. You physically have to insert your product in spaces, because there's no, hey, just go to my page here, click on this. This is huge. So I can't underscore that enough. That's big time work right there. Mention 5, the amount of songs versus the amount of content. like I said, 7 songs. I don't know if it leaves a lot of room for him to go into like talking about politics or talking about romance. It's just kind of a straightforward kind of thing. Every rhyme is kind of braggadocio, but in his braggadocio, I'll say he has different angles. Like we talked about on "I Know You Got Soul," that was more like to the party people, to the dancers.
Right,
This is a song for the party. Eric B for President. Uh, he's more speaking about his
right.
DJ, and then
Giving them
the
props.
right, the last verse he's talking about a young lady he was dating. So I
Hmm.
mean, this pieces of content paid in full itself is like a money mission kind of song.
Right,
So there's a little bit of content. This is not Rakim becoming the God MC that we know, talking about the ghetto or
right, right,
casualties of war, but you kind of see it in him. You know that he's not one dimensional. He can go places, but this album is
right.
the introduction. So you don't need all that. And so I say like 7 songs. I don't know if you need a deep content amount right there. So I don't know. Sometimes we get albums where it's like 18 songs and there's only one
Right.
song where they're talking about something. So it's lopsided. What would you give this? 5 means it didn't matter. It was great.
Yeah,
One,
that's what I'm giving it. I'm giving it a 5 because, like, what you said is all valid, but at the same time, if he would have made content talking about all deep things and all the other things coming out the box, we might not know the Rakim we know today. He had to come out and basically go to the fire hydrant and just do what they do, like leave his mark, like, and it's undeniable. Like, so it was just like, for me, like, he hit, like you said, all points. He gave James Brown, he got everybody and everything in that in different ways. It wasn't me, right? But at the same time, that humility and that confidence of, my name, you're gonna get this work, you're gonna get it again and again, I'm gonna give it 80 different ways, and this is what
yeah,
it is. But you're gonna dance to it, and you're gonna be like, wow, like the wow factor. He did all of that. So for me, I didn't have to get a lot of other content, because to this day I could bump it. You know what I mean?
yeah. Well put. Another 5. I'm gonna cheat a little. I'm gonna go just so we can keep
Mm-hmm.
moving.
So
Dimension 6 features. This is not the time where we have features. It's not that era. But does that help or hurt the album? Not having features. Do you need features? If it's a 5, that
it was
means it didn't
perfect.
matter. Yeah,
So
it's
it
perfect.
doesn't matter for me. Features might have did something different. Like, every song on that joint is a feature to me. So you know what I mean? But like, I know what your question is. I don't think so, because I think it's arguably one of the best albums, rap albums of all time. So I don't think it needed one.
Obviously, that's another 5. That takes us to Dimension 7. The question of, do the weakest songs or does the weakest song on the album bring it down or take away? Is there a song that you skip on this album?
I think it was the Chinese algorithm.
Arithmetic.
Yeah. Arithmetic.
Algorithm.
Yeah, wait, I'm all off on that one, right? I'm
Got
mixing
you.
today with then. Yeah, it's
But
called the Chinese, yeah, arithmetic.
does that mess the album up for you though? Does it take it
No,
away at
because it's
all?
like, for me, I counted them today just to make sure, and I'm like, yeah. So on this one, I got the extended version, but like, it's only like two on here that aren't really working for me.
And it doesn't mess it up for you at all.
No, because what album do you get where you get like 10 out of the 12, or like you want to listen all the time? That's rare, period.
Right. So that sounds like a 5 to me. Damn, April, I gotta get you back on it. I wanted to ask you about the future been female. What does that mean to you?
The future man female is then and now. We've been the bomb. But if you think about any movement as humans, if you think about any movement, that you can find great women behind them. We're not always in front of the person that is seen, but we're cultivators, we're nurturers, we love, and we go hard for community. And I think that whether it's an idea, a family, or change, women can be seen and shouldn't be forgotten. You could look at Walkaware as me being one of the first, but I just did a dress and something commemorating Shirley Chisholm. There's so many more. Frida Kahlo I just did. The women, we just been on the front lines and behind them, pushing the front line. So that's what I mean by the future been female. I think Hillary Clinton's campaign, there was something that came out and they use it a lot. The future is female, and the first thought I had was no, the future been female. So that's what that's about.
Got you. All right. Dimension 8, the question of mass appeal. How much of a reach was this album going to have? How much appeal to a wide audience did this album have?
That's the thing. It's
Yeah.
the vibe. Like it's the whole vibe in the club. If you took yourself to that time and place, and to this day you could play that album and you could be nodding your head, any age, any color. There's no color line. It's just wow. Like, you know what I mean? From lyrics to beats to everything.
Oh man, just iconic imagery. If we're talking about the videos, the paid in full video, which I'm still mad about, the version from the video is not the version on the album. Just like Eric B for President, it's not the version that gets played on the radio, and we grew up mostly knowing those versions. So on the album, I'm missing what they did in the video with the Israeli singing the in that land, but in the video they also do like a super master mix, which is a little distracting. So give or take, but dude, it's missing some of the elements from the radio version. That's the only gripe. It's the only complaint I might have. All right, so what we giving this on a scale from 1 to 5 heartbeats, April?
5.
Dimension 9, everyone's favorite, the 3 I's: impact, innovation, influence.
First of all, it has mega. There's hardly one joint that didn't really wasn't a part of my like soundtrack of my life. Coming up in the most important years too. Like so, you know, um, Eric B and Rakim used to hang in Fort Greene Projects, which is in my neighborhood, and so like it was very much an ecosystem that was small, but everybody kind of knew each other or knew of each other. But then to see them come out with this album that just like, for me, it just was everything. That album hit it. The impact that album had on the streets at that time changed everything forever. Like in terms of the bar, like way, way up. It was that he has that name, the God, for a reason. Like literally, he set the bar so high, and there's still people chasing it. You know what I mean? Trying to get there. So I mean, I think that's what that album did. It changed history for hip hop. So for me, it goes beyond that because it takes me, those songs take me to certain times and places and memories, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right off top, like no questions. Like you just got to give him his dap after that.
You mentioned Fort Greene. I know Eric B and Rakim used to roll with a couple of the gangsters in Fort Greene, Killer Ben. And I heard you mention that back in that day, the drug dealers were really where it was at, as far as the money you get in the flossing and stuff, not the rap. You already kind of spoke to the impact of this album hitting the street, representing kind of all of that without him talking street talk, but could you describe just partying in the 80s, like what that felt like?
It was just different because hip hop was building then. So it was just such an authentic energy that was happening. New York was electric. It was a backdrop. Like an outside museum. You had everything from graffiti to it being gritty and grimy, but then there was a lot of money that was happening because the crack era was coming, and there was a lot of money in the streets, and it was the only time I can remember seeing correction officers hang out with like hustlers and basketball players or boxers. You could see them all posted up together at a club or whatever, and without judgment. It was a weird time, but it was a magical time, and Um, and then there was a support system. We didn't know what the crack era would do, and we know the impact now. But yeah, it was a time where we were, I think, as young people, um, getting our confidence muscles up. We were figuring it out, and it showed in the streets, and it showed in the businesses that were being created, and the guerrilla marketing, and all of the different ancillary branches that were created from hip hop that came out of the 80s. So, and I think the rappers that you see today and you saw in the 90s and 2000s, like all of them tried to emulate that period. So when you see the paid in movie and all of that, that was a real thing. And the rappers that wear all the truck jewelry and stuff, that came from that, so it was a whole, the hustlers did it best then, and they set that blueprint, and I think everyone's chased that sense to have that kind of nostalgia in terms of present.
Got you. That's another five. All right, that takes us to the final dimension, dimension 10, the overall timelessness and uniqueness of this album. I think because they sampled some classic soul joints, that it does have kind of a timeless quality to it. Maybe one or two songs, maybe not. I don't know. You hear him famously say "No Tricks" in '86, letting you know that this is before the album was released officially in 1987. But
I would argue with those people to say it was such a different time. We didn't have a comparison for the music now because it wasn't even created yet. The technology to create that. So for that time, it was that, like in the 90s and or the 80s, which we were dealing with, all the stuff we were dealing with, that spoke to everybody here.
I think you get timelessness because of where they're getting the music from. Again, that Fonda Ray sample on Eric B as president, it never gets old. The I Know You Got Soul, they just breathe new life into a joint that wasn't an A-list soul song, but now it's one of the
It
most
is.
timeless records of all time. So,
And the music, everything, like it, still to this day, it's everything.
all right, that sounds like a five. And that concludes our category one review of the genre defining iconic classic by Eric B and Rakim, Paid in Full. Go check it out. If you are new to it, go revisit it if you grew up on it like me and April. All right, I know you got to go. So I just want you to tell the people what Walkware has cooking up next, what you have cooking up next, where they can find you, and we'll take it like that.
Thank you. It's 50 years in hip hop. So we have more in store for 50 years in hip hop, some film things coming, um, working on a memoir that's going to be a while. And then I am really serious about the education work I have and what I've been teaching for 12 years. I am now doing online courses. So that I'll be launching a digital academy next year. So I'm really excited about that. I'm teaching an online course now. If you're interested, sign up in my Instagram. I have a link tree where you can just sign up and be informed because um, the Digital Academy is going to be really, I'm excited about it, really excited about what that's going to do. And outside of that, yeah, just staying busy, well, trying to stay healthy, mind, body, and soul, and stay creative with Walkaway. We just have a bunch of drops coming out this year. So be on the lookout for that.
Got
You
you.
can find me at walkaware.com. You can find me at iamaprilwalker.com. You can find us on social media at Walkaware, WALKERWEAR, or you can find me at I am April Walker. And we also have Walker Gems. I have a Walker Gems book. You can follow us on Walker Gems and keep in touch for more gems.
There you go. I know on Drink Champs, Nori said you're like Storm from the X-Men, but I gotta tell you, you got the best gray streak of hair in the game. You're more like
Thank
Rogue.
you. Thank
Yo,
you.
if you gotta turn Walker Gems into an audio book, they need to hear your voice.
Yeah, I
Um,
have the audiobook. I just need to drop it. Milk produced it. I gotta just take time to drop that.
yo, shout out to Milk. Milk is also responsible for inspiring me to rap. Thank you so much for joining us, April. Enjoy the rest of your
Thank you.
day. You
You
are
too.
queen. You are legend. And
Thank
let this
you.
not be the last time we speak.
Okay, continue blessings.
All right. Until then, F a rap critic. They talk about it while I live it. Word to meth. Peace.
All right.